Welcome to the day 3 of 7-day Figma design course, and today we are covering auto layout and constraints, and I have already covered the basics of Figma and styles and library. And to understand auto layout and constraints, you should know the basics of Figma. Like there are some pre-requirements. Like you should have watched the first episode of Figma, or you should at least know how Figma work. You should know the basic things like basic function, how to move around in Figma, some basic shortcuts, or what are frames, what are groups, what are rectangle, how to create a new layer, and all the basic stuffs. Okay, link for this episode is in the description. If you have not watched that, go watch that. But if you already know the basics of Figma, you can jump into the module. Okay, and this video is divided into two parts. First one is the constraints, second one is the auto layout. So if you know constraints very well, like you are pro with constraints, you know all the properties of left, right, scale, center, left and right, you know what every single property will do, you can jump to the auto layout part. Okay, you don't need to watch the whole video, or you can watch the video at 2x if you already know something. Okay, and if you're watching this video on laptop, you can change the video speed with the help of shift dot and comma. Like shift dot will increase the video speed and shift comma will decrease the video speed. Okay, so you can change according to your preferences. Let's start with constraints. Let's understand constraints. Like this option we have here, if you select any element, you can see that we have an option here. Now what these options do? Let's select a screen. Now imagine this is a screen, and here we have a button inside that thing. You can see that thing in the layers panel. This is a screen or frame, and we have a button inside that thing. So now when I resize it, let's move it here. So how Figma is deciding that this button should stay on the top? You might be thinking because it's placed on the top, but that's not the case. Like if I show you second example, if I resize it, it's still on the same position. Like if I resize it from the bottom, but if I resize it from the top, it's moving with the frame or the screen. Same thing with this. If I resize it from the top, it's moving with the frame or screen. But if I resize it from bottom, nothing happens. Same thing with this. If I resize it, nothing is happening. But if I resize it from top, it's moving. Now this is happening with the help of constraints. So if you select any element, let's select this button, and you see this option here. We have a constraints active called left and right. This is the horizontal axis, like the constraints net for horizontal axis. You can see that. And this is the top. So what constraints is doing is that it's telling the parent element, like this is screen, just this button should be pinned on the top part. You can see that the constraints is set to top, and here we have activated constraints here. If you just click on it, it will activate that thing. But if I select the bottom part, it will activate the bottom constraints. So now the button is actually placed to the bottom part, and you can also identify that thing with a blue dotted line. Like the constraint is set to bottom, right and left, and on top part we don't have any constraints, so constraint is set to bottom. So now if I resize it from top, nothing will happen. But if I resize it from bottom, the button will move. You can see that thing. Okay, now why we need this thing? Because in UI design, like when you are building actual application, we have different fonts. Like that same application or website will be used on different phones, and every phone has different dimensions. Like the screen size of every phone is different. So you have to build your design and develop your design accordingly. Like it should work on all screens. So for doing that, we use constraints. Like if I show you a live example, this is a fab or floating action button, and if I resize it, it will stay in the bottom right part. Like if I resize it, you can see that no matter what is the screen size, it will stay in the bottom right part. So this is how constraints help you. Like similarly with this, here we have the search bar, keyboard, and a bottom nav bar and a status bar. If I resize it, the keyboard will stay in the bottom part where it should be. Okay, we have achieved this thing with the help of constraints. Like similarly with this, we have search suggestion here. If you resize it, nothing will happen because it should move with the top part of the screen. Okay, now let me show you all properties of constraints. Now first of all, I'll draw a frame, and your constraints only work if the element is placed inside a frame. Like this is a frame, and if I draw another rectangle inside it, you can see that constraints property is visible. But if I draw any rectangle outside of the frame, like on an empty canvas, like there is nothing around that frame, you can see that thing here in the layers panel, like there is nothing around the rectangle, it's empty. We don't have that option. So to constraints to work, the element should be inside a frame. You can either add any rectangle or frame inside a frame. It will show the property. The main thing is it should be inside a frame. Only then the constraint property will work. Let me undo this. Okay, let's place this rectangle here, and I want to make this rectangle stick to the top left part. So I can choose the top. Like here, from here I have selected the top. If you just click on it, you will select the constraints. By default it's on top left. So even if you resize it from the top part, it will move with the top part. But if you resize it from the bottom part, nothing will happen. What if I want to make this thing from the bottom? I can simply select it and choose the bottom constraints. Okay, now if I resize it from bottom, it will stay in the bottom. Now what if I want to place the thing in the center? Let's place it in the center, and if I choose center align, like center constraints, or you can, and if you're not able to select this thing from here, you can always use the drop down. It's easier that way. Okay, if we simply select it, so no matter how much I resize it, the element will stay in the center. Okay, you can experiment this thing on your own. It's not that much hard. Now the confusing property in this, it's the scale and left and right. Like we have to select this option, you can see that we have two properties, scale, top and bottom. Similarly, scale, left and right. Now people get confused between these two properties a lot. So let me show you with a very simple example. Like on the top element, like here this rectangle, the constraints are set to left and right and top and bottom. And here on the horizontal axis, the constraints are set to scale. Similarly with the vertical axis. Okay. So now when I will resize it, let's resize it a bit. The left and right spacing will not change. You can see that if I select it and hold down Alt or Option key to see the spacing, it's 120 pixels. I have written down that thing. The initial spacing was 120 pixels. So no matter how much I resize it, like from top or bottom, the spacing will remain the same. Like if I select it and see that from top it's 110 pixels, so even if I shrink it, it's still 110 pixels. Okay, but that's not the same case with the scale. In this, the element size was changing, but the spacing around that thing or the padding or margin was same. Okay, but if I choose scale, initially the spacing from left and right is 120 pixels, 110 and 120 pixels from the top and left. Okay, and the width is 1337 pixels. Okay, so if I select it and let's double the width, like we will double the width of parent container. So if I simply go here and do the basic math, like press shift 8 to type star and then press 2 and hit enter, then it will double the width of parent container. Let's move it here. Now if I select it, you can see the left right spacing has been actually changed. Initially it was 120 pixels, now it's doubled. So it has doubled the spacing as well as the size. Like initially the width was 1357, I guess, like the half of this thing, but now it has doubled the width of that thing. Or and even if I change the height, because the height is also set it to, like the vertical constraints are set to scale, so it will also double the spacing. Like if I, let me undo it, we will double it properly. Let's type 800 here because it's 400. Okay, now if I select it from top and bottom, it's 220 pixels. Initially it was 110, so it has doubled that thing. So this is the main difference. In left and right or top and bottom, the margin or spacing remains the same, only the size of the element changes. But in scale, the spacing around that element or the width or height of that element changes. Okay, so I hope you got the idea, and if you play around with these options, you will understand it. It's not that much hard. Like constraints is a very easy thing. Now let's see what constraints cannot do. Like here we have another screen, like this was the initial screen. This is built with the help of constraints. Now if I change the screen, like you can see that currently we don't have enough space to fit this chip or this suggestion here. But what if the screen width was big? So if I resize it, ideally it should move here. Like in a real application or website, it should move here because we have enough space to fit these items. Okay, but it's not possible with constraint. So now this problem can be fixed with the help of Autolayout. Like this is a screen designed with the help of Autolayout. Now if I resize it, you can see that the element is automatically shifting to the above line. You can see that if I resize it more, it will shift that, and if I reduced it, you can see that the element is shifting to the below line according to the spacing available there. Or if there is enough spacing for the element, it will move to the top part, and if it's not, it will move to the bottom line. Okay, so now this is what Autolayout does. Like you can understand that thing by just the name Autolayout. It will automatically adjust the layout. Let me show you a very basic example. Like this is a button without auto layout. So if I type anything, like the button size will be different obviously depending upon what is inside the button. Let's say this was add to cart, and ignore the typo. Okay, so this is not adjusting automatically. You can fix that thing with the help of auto layout. Similarly with this, if I had an icon, I want this icon to shift when I type something else like label. It's not moving, like the spacing between these two icons or label is not changing. We can fix this thing with the help of auto layout. Okay, let me show you how to build auto layout. Like this is a button with the help of auto layout. Like if I change the label, add to cart, you can see the spacing is still the same. Like initially the spacing was 8 pixels and still the 8 pixels, and from left, right and bottom everything is same, and the width of that parent container is changing automatically. Okay, now let's see how can you add auto layout to any element. Like if I draw a rectangle, or let's type a text label, Okay, and let's draw a frame. Let's add some color to it. Let's pick the same color. Okay, and if I move this label inside the frame, make sure that the frame is inside the the label is inside the frame, otherwise it will not work. Let's move it inside the frame. You can see that it's inside the frame. You can also see that thing in the layers panel. Let's rename it auto, or you can press Ctrl R to rename it. I just double clicked on the layer to rename it. Now currently if I change anything, nothing will happen because we have not added auto layout. Let me undo it. So what I have to do is I have to select the frame, okay, and choose this option, or I can press Shift A to add auto layout. Now you can see that auto layout has been added, and here we have some options. So now if I type something, let's change the label, add to cart. Okay, it's changing according to the child content. Okay, so this is a very simple button. Now let's look at different properties of auto layout. For that I will come to this button. Okay, I will select this button, and you see this option here. This is the left and right spacing, like horizontal padding, and this is the vertical padding. So if I select it, you can see that from right it's 16 pixels. Let's change the top and bottom padding so that you can distinguish that thing. Okay, from left and right is 16 pixels. You can see that, and from here we also have 16 pixels. You can see that it's 16 pixels. So if I change it, it will change the left and right spacing. Okay, and if I want to adjust the individual padding, like here we have the top, I can obviously change the top and bottom. If I go inside this option, I will be able to adjust the individual spacing. Like if I want to make this icon, like the spacing from the icon side should be 24 pixels, and from the label side it should be 20 pixels. So what I will do is I will select the frame, make sure that you have selected the parent frame, and go to this option, type 20 here. Okay, and from the label side I want 24 pixels. Okay, and from top I want 16 pixels, and from bottom I want 12 pixels. Although this is not how we design button, like the top and bottom padding of a button should be same in majority of the cases. So now if I select the icon, you can see that from top it's 16 pixels, from bottom it's 12 pixels, from left it's 20 pixels, and from the right it's 24 pixels. And we also have a spacing between icon and the label. If you select the icon, hold on Alt and hover, you can see that spacing is 8 pixels. Now for spacing we have this option here, 8 pixels. Like I can increase it to 24. Now the spacing between icon and the label is 24 pixels. Okay, and we have actually directions here. Like if you just choose vertical direction, then the auto layout direction will be vertical. So no matter if I add more options here, the buttons will change accordingly. Like all the content of the button will move in a vertical direction. Okay, and if I change it to horizontal direction, it will move in that direction. Okay, now let's go a little deeper in the auto layout option. Like here I have a frame, inside I have 5 elements, and I've added auto layout to the parent container. You can see that here we have a parent container, and inside that I have 5 elements. Okay, currently it's set to vertical. If I set to currently it's set to horizontal. If I set to vertical, then the direction will change to vertical. Okay, and if I add more options here like 5, 6, let's 6, 7, you can see that the direction is vertical. I can change it to here. Now here we have a third option. Now this is what was happening here. Like if I show you, in this we were using wrap. Like when I change the width, the element is shifting. In this we are wrapping the content. Like the content is automatically wrapping around the parent container. Let me show you. If I choose the wrapping option, before that if I resize it, you can see that nothing is happening. The element is overflowing, it's going outside the frame, but we don't want that. We want the element to shift to next element if it don't have enough space. So let's resize it again and choose this wrap option, like wrap. Okay, and if you hover over any element or any icon or button, you will see what's the name or what it does. Now if I resize it, the element will shift to next line. Okay, you can see that. Now what I want to do is I want all those options to align to left. Like currently they are aligned to the center. Like when I move anything, it goes in the center part of that thing. I want to make this thing left aligned. For that I can click here and it will align all the options to the left part. I can align it to bottom part, right part, and bottom part also. Like if I align bottom, so when I will resize it, the element will stick to the bottom. Similarly to the top, to the center. These are pretty easy. It's not that much big. And then we have the vertical and horizontal spacing. Like if I increase the vertical spacing to, let's say, 32, then the spacing between vertical elements, like it's 32 pixels. But from the horizontal side, like the left right element will remain the same, like it's 12 pixels, 12 pixels. Now what if I want to like change the spacing? Like instead of aligning them to left or right or to center, I want to change the spacing between them. So for that, what I can do is I can go to this option, like this is the spacing between them, and this will work in both vertical, horizontal, or wrapping. Okay, just go here and choose auto. When you will choose auto, it will change the spacing between two elements according to the parent containers. Like no matter how much I resize it, it will automatically adjust the spacing between two elements. Okay, like if I resize it, you can see that automatically width is changing. And instead of going here like choosing the drop down, what you can do is, if you are here, simply click on this auto layout alignment option. Like it should be highlighted in blue. You can see that. You can simply press X to switch between the auto width or the fixed width. Okay, you can switch that thing. Okay, so you know the basic options of auto layout. Let me show you some advanced property. Let's make it fit and reduce the spacing. Like, and if you want to change the spacing of all the like left, right, top, bottom at once, simply hold on Control or Command and then click. Then you will be able to change the padding or spacing from all the four sides. And if you type 0 here, the spacing will change. And if you want to, like, instead of going here and then typing individually, what you can do is you can simply click here and type like 12. First of all, it will be top. Like if you type comma like 12 comma 24, like I have assigned the top padding, right padding, then I will assign the bottom padding by typing comma and let's say 36, again 0. Okay, and then if I hit enter, you can see that from top it was 12 pixels, from bottom it was 36 pixels, from right it was 24, and from the left it was 0 pixels. So this is how it works. Like first you type the top, right, bottom and left. You can see top, right, bottom, left. Okay, so this is how things work. Let's type 0 because to understand this example, the padding should be 0 and the clip content option should be turned off. Now I will select all the child element. For that I will simply hit enter and make sure that all the child elements are selected, and I will add a stroke. Let's increase the stroke width, okay, and change the color. Okay, now you can see that the stroke is also included in the auto layout. If I select the parent layer, the stroke is also included because we have selected this option. In your case, the stroke will not be included because by default Figma excludes strokes. Okay, so if I go to this option like strokes, include, first click on exclude stroke, then it will exclude the stroke of the element. Let's say if I decrease the stroke a bit because it's not visible, you can see that it's not considering the stroke in the auto layout. Like the stroke are outside of the element. Like if I select this frame, strokes are outside of that frame. Okay, so it's not including those things in auto layout. Okay, and then if I go here, then we have this option here like canvas stacking, like last on top or first on top. Like if I just decrease the spacing, and let's change the color also so that you can see clearly. Let's remove. Okay, now if I select it and go inside this option, okay, and if I choose first last on top, then you can see that the last element is on top right now. But if I choose first on top, then it will hide the last element to the bottom part. Like the first is on top, last is on bottom. Well, this option is pretty self-explanatory. You can play around with this option. It's not that much complicated. Like we have this last on top, first on top. So, and then we have the third option. Okay, let me draw a text like label. Okay, and then let me copy this icon. Let's add a fill to this icon so that you can see the boundaries clearly. Now if I select it and press Shift A to add auto layout, now you can see that when I hover over the text or if I select the text, you see this blue line here. This is called the baseline, like baseline of our text. And I have covered the theory part, like all these things in typography video, like in my free UI UX design course. In this, we are only covering the tool part. So if you want to learn theory, go check out that playlist. Link is in the description. It's available for free on YouTube. Okay. So this is the baseline. Okay. Now if I go inside this option and choose like align text baseline, if I choose this, then it will align the text to the baseline. Sorry, align the item, any other item we have. Like this is the icon and this is the baseline. So it has aligned that thing to the baseline. Let me show you by adding a ruler. I will press Shift R, then I will have my ruler turned on. I can simply click and drag to add a ruler. You can see that I have a red line here. Okay, you can see that the ruler, like here we have the ruler and it's aligned to the baseline. But if I turned off this option, it will not align that thing to the baseline. It will align that thing to the box container. Like the actual height of the text box is bigger than the actual text. Okay, like if I align it to bottom, it's aligning to the text box, not the text baseline. Okay, and by the way, you will not use this thing in UI design. Like you will rarely use this option. Like personally, I have never used this thing, but there in your case there might be scenarios where you need this thing, so you should know about this thing. Now let's see some practical examples or some advanced options of auto layout. Like this is a bookmark card, and you can see that here we have a bookmark, and when I resize it, and you can see that there is an auto layout added in this frame. You can see that here. but the bookmark icon is not inside the auto layout. It's free. Like you can see that the description is changing, the heading will also change if I resize it, but the bookmark option is not changing. That's because I have set that position to absolute. If I select the icon, you can see that we have an option here. If I click it, you can see that it's absolute position. Now it will be included in the auto layout. But what if I don't want to include this element in auto layout? I want this to act freely. For that, I will go here, like in the width and height options, like simply click here to make that thing free from auto layout. Let's align it to top and right and move it a little bit here. And then I will set the constraints to right and top because I want this element to stick to top and right part of that thing. Okay. So now when I will select it and resize it, that element will act according to the constraints, not auto layout, because we have moved that thing outside of the auto layout. And if you know HTML CSS, this is similar to like the absolute position we have in HTML CSS. This is the same thing. Okay. Now next thing is, what if I don't want my auto layout container to like to go beyond this width? Like the width should not change below this point or this point, because that will mess up the heading. I don't want to mess up the heading. So what I will do is, I will go to this width option and add a minimum width. Like the width will not change beyond a certain point. Like it's 282 pixels. Okay, I will type 282 pixels. Now I can increase the width freely, but I cannot decrease the width after a certain point, like after 282 pixels, because I have set it the minimum width to 282 pixels. Okay, you can also see that thing. 282 pixels minimum width. Okay. Now what if I don't want this element to go beyond a certain width? So for that I can go here and set the add maximum width. Let's say I want to 600. I don't want this to go beyond 600. Okay, so now if I resize it, it will not go beyond 600 and it will not go below 282 pixels. So this is very helpful in UI design. You will use this thing a lot. Okay, now let's look at the fixed hug and fill container property. Now you can see that when I resize it, the description is actually automatically changing. Now why this is happening? So if I select the description and look at this option, like this is set to fill. Now fill means it will change its width according to the parent container. Okay, and if I set it to fixed width and then resize it, nothing will happen. It's not changing the width according to the parent container. Okay, let's select the description again, and if I set it to hug content, now again it's free from auto layout. If I resize it, the width of that element will not change. It will change according to the content inside that thing. Like if I see this, like currently this is the text box we have. If I go inside this and type this is description, like you can see that the width is actually changing according to the content inside that, and you will understand that thing in just a minute more. And yeah, you can also set the height to fixed, like fixed height, minimum, maximum height. Okay, and if you want to remove the minimum height, simply go to this width option here, like remove minimum, min, max height. Okay, simply click here and it will remove the minimum or maximum height. Now let's understand the concept of auto layout nesting. Okay, so here we have a card, and when I resize it, you can see that here we have 3 buttons and the button size is changing according to the parent container. And if I click on the button, you can see that button are also inside a container. Like this is a button container, and if I expand it, that contains the button, and these 2 buttons are inside another container. Like this is called auto layout nesting. Because in a simple auto layout, like without nesting auto layout, it's not possible to change the width. Like the width is actually half. Like these 2 have equal width. You can see that here, 188.5 pixels. Similarly with this. Okay, it's not possible to change the width this way. And by the way, auto layout nesting means when we put auto layout inside auto layout, like in this option, if you select the parent container, like this is secondary button, here we have auto layout added, and again we have another parent container, here we have auto layout added, and then we have the master card here we have auto layout added. Okay, so let's design this card. I will draw a rectangle. Let's move this thing option here, and here also I also have a tag. Like I want to make this float here, so I will simply drag that thing inside and choose this option, absolute position. I showed you that thing just a minute. Okay, and then I will set the constraints to left and top. It's already set. So I have my constraints ready with the tag. I can resize it and it will stay in its position. Now let's design this card. Simply I will press R to draw a rectangle for this image, and you can use a plugin called Unsplash. Like simply press Shift I, go to this plugins option and type Unsplash. Okay, simply run it and you can choose any image you want. Okay, I will go to presets and choose any random, like insert random. It will insert a random image. Okay, let's close it. Now we have an image ready here. Okay, let me change the background color so that it's easy visible. Okay, let's delete the heading. I will type the heading. Simply press T and type heading goes here, and ignore the typo. I'm not fixing the typo. This is, and change the font size to 14 pixels. The heading size will be 18 pixels. You can change the font size according to your requirement, move them here. Now we will design a button. Simply click here and type button. Sorry. Then press escape, and then you can simply press shift A to grab this thing inside a frame and add auto layout. Figma will do that thing automatically. Shift A to add that thing to auto layout and wrap inside a frame. Let's rename it to primary button. And you should develop a habit of renaming layers, because it's very helpful in a longer run when you name every single layer for you or any other developer or designer working on the project. And we will adjust the spacing of this thing, like from left to right it will be 24 pixels, from top it will be 12 pixels. Okay, and it will be aligned to center. Let's round the corner to 12 pixels. I will copy this thing and change the color to a little lighter. You can copy the exact hex code if you want, or you can use your own color. Simply go inside and select the text, change the text color to black. I will copy it. Let's say button 2, button 3. Okay, now first of all we will nest these two. Like select this and press shift A. Let's rename it to secondary button. Okay, so now what I want to do with these two buttons is when I will resize it, their width should also change. So I will select both of them, simply click, like double click and go inside that, or you can simply press hold on control, then click. That way you will be able to select the child element easily, and then hold on shift, select both the buttons, or you can select that from layers panel. Okay, then set the width to, like this is currently set to hug. Hug means it will change the width according to the content inside that thing. I will set that to fill container. Okay, and you can set the spacing between these two to 12 pixels. Okay, and the direction should be vertical. Okay, and now when I change it, it will change according to parent container. We will do this thing same, like let's align it properly, change the size and select both of them, and then press shift A again. Let's rename it by pressing Ctrl R. Okay, button container, hit enter. Okay, I want to do the same thing again. When I resize it, the button should change. So I will go inside the layer, select the primary button, set it to fill container, select the secondary button container, set it to fill container. Okay, so when I will resize it, like the width, it will change accordingly. And let's change the spacing to 12 pixels. Okay, now everything is set it up. I will change the size according to the image size. Okay, let's move it here. And let's copy the description text to make it big. Reduce the size. And let's change the heading color to black, because the card color will be white. Okay, now select all of them and press shift A. Now our auto layout is added. Let's add a color. Okay, now let's change the spacing. Simply control click and type 12 to add a 12 pixel margin. Let's change the border also to 12. Select the image, change the border to again like 8. Okay, so now our card is ready. If I resize it, nothing is happening. Again, we have to change the property to fill. Let's undo this. Select the image, set it to fill, description, set it to fill, again set to fill, set to fill. Okay, now if I resize it, it will change accordingly. And let's also add the minimum width, like 256 pixels will work fine. Like add minimum width to 56 pixels, and let's also add maximum width, like add maximum width, it's let's say 320 pixels. Okay, so now our card will only vary between 320 pixels and 256 pixels. Okay, and you can also set the height, like I don't want this to go beyond like 347 pixels because the description is fitted. Simply click here, go to like set, add maximum height 347 and hit enter. Okay, the height will not increase. And when I will resize it now, you can see that the width is actually, sorry, the height is actually not changing because the height is set to fixed. I have to set that thing to hug content so that the height will change according to the content inside that thing. Simply click on hug content. Now I will change according to the content inside that thing. Okay, I hope you understand everything. And here we have a tag. Let's move it here. Let's move it that thing inside our auto layout. And when you copy anything from one layout, auto layout to another auto layout, and the position was set to absolute initially, like in this frame, sorry, in this auto layout, the position was set to absolute, and you can also see that thing here icon. Like these are the normal elements, like without absolute position, but with the absolute position, we have a boundary. So when you will copy this thing from one auto layout to another auto layout, it will automatically add the absolute position. Let's move it here. Instead of top, I want to place it this thing here. Let's check the spacing. It should be 6 by 6 pixels and it's perfectly fine. Now our card is working the right way. But what if I don't want to change this rectangle width, like, or this image width? I want this to remain the same proportion. Like currently the width is changing, but I don't want to do that. I want to make the height and width fixed, like they should scale proportionally. Okay, for that what I will do is, let's remove the minimum and maximum height because that's disturbing me. Okay, we will use a plugin called aspect ratio. Then go to plugins and search for a plugin aspect. Simply click it to run it. Okay, then you have to simply select the image. Okay, then you have to click on this icon here, or you can specify the width and height manually, like this is the width and this is the ratio. I will select it. That will take this height and log that width and height. Simply click on this icon. Okay, then create ratio. Okay, then it will create a frame. So when I will resize the width, like if I resize the width, the height is also changing automatically. Let's move it inside the frame. So I simply Control X, select the frame or auto layout, move it to the top. Okay, like you can see that thing here. Now we will move this image inside this ratio, like simply drag it here. Okay, now we'll move this image inside this container, and this might be a little confusing, so you can always replay the video. Simply drag it here. Okay, then we will set the height, like fix the height, change the width. Okay, and then we will select the rectangle because this is the auto layout frame, so we will set the position to absolute and choose the constraints like left and right, top and bottom. So now when I will resize it, oh wait a minute, I forgot to change the fill container property, like fill content. So when I will resize it, the height will also change, and for some reason if it's the height is not changing, simply select the ratio card and the option should be set to hug contents. Okay, you should use this thing very smartly. At first you might not understand this thing, but if you practice a little you will understand. It's not that much hard. Okay, so the width should be set to fill and the height should be set to hug contents. Okay, now what I want you to do is, I want you to create this input field. Now we know auto layout very well. I wanted to pause this video and create this input field, like I can resize it, like the icon will move on the left and right. Okay, and this is what's happening. I can also change that info text, like simply type here and it will jump to next line. Simply with this, if I type here, it will truncate that thing. Like you can see that it's not jumping in the next line. In this case it was jumping in the next line, but in the case of input text, as soon as the width of that text changes, it hides that thing. For that you can use an option called truncate option, and if you have watched the last video, you already know about truncation. Like this option here, truncation. Like if I select this option, it will transfer the text in the next line. So you have to choose the truncate option. And in this we have used the nesting option, like we have a right icon, left icon. Then here we have an auto layout nesting, like the label contents. Size it. And then we have the info container. Okay, pause the video and try it yourself. Okay, so I hope you successfully designed this input field, but for some reason if you couldn't, let's design this together. I will start by drawing this label, then this input text, then this info. Okay, like simply press T, then type label. Okay, then press escape. The font size will be 12 pixels. Let's copy this thing, change the font size to 16, and we will change the fill of this to 50%. Like simply press 5 to change the opacity to 50%. Okay, let's change the frame color because I will change the text color. Let's type place input text. Okay, let's select both of them, press Shift A and then simply double click, then type text container. Now we will import an icon. You can use your icon library if you have any. I'm using a plugin called Iconify. Yeah, this plugin Iconify. Simply click on it and then I will search for a locker icon or a password, like simply type password here. Okay, then search the icon and then you have to select the icon you want. Like if I select this and then scroll down a bit and then choose import icon or import as a component. I will simply import icon. Okay, let's move it here. Where is our icon? Yeah, here is the icon. I will move this thing inside. Okay, let's change the color to black. Also change the color of this text to black. Now we will copy this icon. You can import another icon like this show hide icon. I'm not doing that. Simply select it, select all of them, press Shift A. Okay, and then add a fill color and add some padding. Let's check what was the padding. Okay, so from top it's 9 pixel. Actually from top and bottom we don't have any padding. We have fixed the height because the height will not change. Obviously the input field height will not change because in this type of input field the height don't change, the height remains the same. And if you want to learn about input field in UI design, like the theory part, I have already created a detailed video. You can go and watch that. Link is in the description and in the I button. Okay, like the height is set to fix. From left right we have 16, from top and bottom doesn't matter, you can also type 0 here, it will not matter. And the spacing between these two is 12. Direction is vertical and it's aligned to left align. In this case the alignment doesn't matter. Okay, I will select it, set the left and right to 16. I will leave the top and bottom as it is. Go to height option, type 56. I will round the corner, let's say 12 pixels. Okay, now I will select that. Before that let's adjust the spacing in between, like simply click here and type 12. Now what I want to do is when I will resize it, I want this icon to move to the right and this icon to stay on the left, but I want this input field to expand. So for that I will select the input field, like simply select the input field or the input container. It should contain both the label and the input text. Simply select it and set it to fill container. So it will adjust the width according to the parent container. Okay, now let's design this icon here, like simply copy it, you can type the text and I'm using the same icon again. You can import another icon. Let's resize it to 16 pixels. Like the minimum icon size should be 16 pixels because if you go beyond that it will not be visible in UI design. Yeah, there are some scenarios where you can go below 16 pixels for an icon, but I will not recommend you to that. Simply select the icon, press K for scale tool and type 16 here, because you might be using a stroke icon. In that case it will mess up the layout. Okay, let's select both of them, add a auto layout and rename. We will change the spacing. Like from the left side you can see that we have some padding here, it's 16, and from right side the spacing is 6 pixels. Simply select it, expand this option, type 16 here, and the spacing between will be 6 pixels. I will keep 8 pixels. You can use another spacing if you want. Place it here, select both of them, press Shift A, then go inside and select the input field. Let's rename it to input. Okay, and this is info container. Let's collapse this thing. Now we will set both the things to fill container because we want the size to change according to the parent container. Simply go here and just fill. Same with this, fill, and same with this text, like fill container. And I want this text to truncate, like after one line it should not expand anymore. So I will select it again, set it to fill container, go to this advanced option and choose this truncate text. Okay, now our input field is ready. Let's also add minimum and maximum width. Like minimum width will be at minimum width, it will be 328 pixels, and height we will leave the height as it is, but we will set the maximum height also, sorry, maximum width also. Add maximum width to, let's say, 420 pixels. And you always don't need to add this minimum or maximum things. I'm just showing you all the options, but in real projects you don't need to use all the options, otherwise it will mess up your design in a longer run. Okay, now I cannot go below 328 pixels and I cannot go above 420 pixels. And if I type the text, let's resize it, if I type something here, it will hide that thing after a point. Okay, and yeah, in real input fields, like when the developer will code this thing, this should be scrollable. Like I should be able to see what's on the left side, on the right side of what I have typed. Okay, and you can create your login form with the help of this. Like if I select this thing, if I copy it, duplicate it, and I add another auto layout, hit enter to go to child element, set the width to fill container, and then my input field is ready. I can change this thing according to my requirement. Okay, so today we learned everything about constraints and how to use auto layout. Now you are a pro with auto layout, and you will get better with auto layout as you practice more. Okay, and in the next video we will cover everything about components and variants. So make sure that you turn on the notification, and see you in next video. Bye.